Boardroom, Chapter 20, 3997 BC, Act 2. By 1 p.m., Ad's forces were mobilized and ready. The consensus in the war room was that Ad should initiate the attack with his far-right division, and after outflanking his opponent, much the same way as was done by Knapp the day before, roll his opponent toward the center. This accomplished, Bells would strike the reeling enemy force almost from behind. The result would be that a large contingent of Capel's force would be trapped, either forced to surrender or be slaughtered. But Ad did not like Alexius' forces sitting out in the open. He feared they could throw a monkey wrench into the pincer movement, and he overrode the other generals. Instead, at 1 p.m., Ad sent his main force straight ahead toward a point of attack just to the right of Alexius' boys. When his men got to that point, they would simply flank Alexius' relatively small company and wipe it out. This done, they would blitz straight forward into the enemy lines. Once they were engaged, the right and left flanks of his division would also hit the lines hard. Overall, Ad was aware he would have superior numbers and was convinced he could push the enemy line back. Once he had breached the line, Bells could add support where needed, and they could drive a wedge into the capital line. Then, as additional forces were added, the breach would widen and the rout would be on. What Ad did not count on was the stubborn resistance put up by Alexius' men. Though severely outnumbered, they provided very stiff resistance. It took Ad's men the better part of 3 hours just to subdue them, and with time marching on, concern mounted as to whether there would be sufficient time to drive the projected wedge into the weakened capital line. Despite the concern, this is what Ad proceeded to do. With Alexius' position now collapsed, Ad's boys and girls drove straight ahead. The capitals had to thin out their line considerably to shore up the hole Alexius had left in their line. The capital line began to sag badly at its left center. Reinforcements were now brought from all over in an attempt to shore up the lines, but they continued to sag back farther, and Ad's wedge was now a reality. To coordinate things, Ad now sent his far right flank on a full charge into the far left of the capital line. But some of the Ad's forces had been drawn into the wedge in the far left of the capital line, thanks to a series of maneuvers including feints, switchbacks, and refusal, held its ground. The wedge in the line did now push completely through the capital's line's left center, but Ad's force was now fighting on two fronts, and this required additional support. The needed angels were drawn from Ad's left, and thus when the left part of the line began their planned charge, they did not have the manpower to make much headway. Ad had to keep feeding troops into the center of the bulge to maintain it, and he fully expected the flanks to then collapse, allowing for a major advance and likely the rout of the capital forces. But Alexius' bizarre move earlier in the day, combined with stiffer than expected resistance on Ad's right, left him feeding this central bulge, and now he was running out of food. He pleaded with Bells to bring in more forces from the center. Bells complied, but after doing so for an hour, he saw that everything he was sending in was being chewed up. So he abruptly put a stop to it. He told Ad to either push the entire line forward or draw back out of the bulge. Finally, by 7 p.m., the capital's forces to the right and left of the capitals gave way. Ad moved his line forward several miles along his entire front. In fact, the front was now within a mile of the center of the capital where Gabe's headquarters was located. But now darkness was becoming Ad's worst enemy, and in the decreasing light he could make no real progress. Skirmishing finally died down about 9 p.m. Casualties were massive. Ad had lost a third of his troops, and Gabe's first or left corps was down to half strength. The ellipse he had at the start of the day now had a huge dent in it, but it had held firm. Alexius, who survived the onslaught he had created, was relieved of his command on the spot. In later years he would be called a hero. Cited would be the fact that his bizarre, distracting movement Delayed ads charged for at least 3 hours. If Ad had unleashed his soldiers in the forenoon, the First Corps would have never held. No one was sure what Pops would do if Gabe and his boys lost this battle, and, and no one wanted to find out. Neither did anyone know what death really meant. Was it final, or was this just a play where at the end of the play everyone's life or body would be restored? The evening newscasts were all over the place on this issue, but anyone who had seen green blood run free in the past 2 days realized this was no play act, no fun, and no joke. What do you think, Pops? The leader of the universe stared at the floor. We're all dying out there. Half your friends are gone. Half my friends are gone. Tomorrow we all will be gone. He threw his hands up in the air and let out a long, audible sigh. Gabe sat resolute between Pops and Luke. Junior, sitting over behind Pops, got up and stepped forward. He put his arm on Luke's shoulder. Luke initially retracted, but then relaxed. You know what has to be done, Junior said. Luke nodded affirmatively. But we need assurances. We need a place for our people to live in peace. And we need more power to run our own community as we please. You said yourself, Pops, we are created free. We can talk about that, Junior said. But what? Luke said. You got it all. We got nothing. We're slaves. You got it all and you want more. Well, we've got no more to give. Luke glared up at Pops, who now stared back at him. You got it all, old man. There's nothing else I have to give you. I gave my son out there in that bloody plain, my most prized possession, my innocent little son, and here you sit, doing nothing but allowing this mass murder to go on day after day. Wake up, you heartless old man, before everything and everyone is stone cold dead. Luke bent forward, emotionally spent, and began bawling like a baby. Knapp came over and put his hand on Luke's left shoulder, but Luke whisked it away and continued to sob out loud. When Luke had become so weak he began to run out of tears, Pop stood up and walked over to him. Pops knelt down in front of him and said, Freedom has a price. Yeah, we die and you're free of us, Luke snapped. Freedom, or life, requires order. Yeah, you get rid of us and then everyone is your yes man again. Well, I nor all my buddies can live like that. We won't live like that. What's life for us anyway? I've given you all, everything. Look around you. The universe is yours, but in order for us or anyone or anything to exist, there must be order. All I saw today was blood, blood, blood. No order, just blood. Luke wiped both eyes, then he spat on the ground near Pop's feet. Son, you had everything, and you can have it all back. Yeah, you'll probably just lock us all up. No thanks. We'll fight, and I promise you we'll defeat you, Luke said, shaking his fingers at the old man, who now felt tears welling in his own weary eyes. He then recovered and said, So what's the deal, Pops? I mean, if we come back, do I get my son back? Do I get a place to stay? Do we get more of that awful manna you send us now? What? Speak, old man. Cat got your tongue? Knapp grabbed both Luke's shoulders, fearing Luke would take a swing at the old man, appearing disheveled despite being dressed nattily in a gray striped suit. Let him go, Knapp, Pops motioned. Knapp and Luke both relaxed a little. There can be no deals, Luke. You know that. Everything and everyone must return to their former positions. The only way we can all coexist is with order and love. That's just not right. We have rights too, you know. We deserve our freedom to live and do as we please. Pop's face began to contort and soon matched his red striped tie. Junior and the others sensed his patience was now perilously thin. You have always done just as you please, Luke. I have given you everything. There is no more. There is more. We can have our own society. We don't need you or anyone else. A house divided against itself can't stand. Your society, as you put it, would self-destruct in a matter of a few years. Take a look out there, old man. Your house is about to bleed its last. It's over. Once we're all dead, you can make a new bunch of slaves. But don't give them a mind to think with. If you do, they'll just use it to hate you like I do. I hate you. Luke's face turned as blue as his navy blue double-breasted suit with matching tie. I promise you that if we win this war, I will personally do everything in my power to put my sword through the heart of your son Junior and all you hold dear. Then I'll keep you alive so that you can agonize forever. I guarantee you that when I am ruler of this universe, freedom will ring from each and every corner. My son did not die in vain. No, his voice cracked. No, he died so that we, know that freedom might live. No more slavery. No more God telling us what to do and when to do it. Everyone free to do whatever he pleases. Pop stared at him for what seemed an eternity. It won't work, son, he finally said. Freedom is order. You had everything, and you can have it all back, no questions asked. All you have to do is reach out and take my hand. Pops extended his hand toward Luke's still blood-stained hand. Luke had purposefully left some green blood on it to make an impression on Pops. The silence in the room was deafening, save for the grind of the cameras. The little meeting was being broadcast on U1, the channel seen in all the universe, and there was likely not one pair of eyes that was not glued to the TV set. Luke stared first at the floor, then at the ceiling. He then stared back at Pop's outstretched hand. He then stared again at the floor. He looked over at Knapp in a full blue uniform. Then he looked at Junior dressed in a burgundy suit with gray, burgundy, and white print tie. Gabe stood next to him in full dress white uniform, and their eyes met briefly. Luke's mind circled rapidly. How he missed them all, even Pop's. How he wanted things to be as they were before all this dissension had torn his and their little universe apart. He especially didn't enjoy being the point man for half the angels in the universe. He wasn't quite sure how he got that job, and he had really ceded it to Bells, but Bells didn't make the meeting. He was busy planning tomorrow's attack with Ad. Luke kept thinking he really didn't know what to do. A minute went by, then 2, then 5. He began to realize that all eyes were on him. 6 minutes, 8 minutes, and finally 10 minutes passed. Pop's hand was still outstretched. Luke fidgeted. Knapp tried to ease Luke's hand forward, thinking they could rebuild and rebel another time. But Luke was starting to feel it. He slowly began to realize that everything was now riding on him. Everything revolved around what he was about to do or not do. The sense of bewilderment gradually changed into a sense of calm. Then it reversed completely into a sense of complete security, complete power. The whole world was watching him, little Luke. He and he alone had more power than anyone or anything, even Pops. What he was about to do would decide the future of every living thing. He had never felt such a sense of power, and he imagined it was what the guy 2 feet in front of him felt all the time. Luke's soul welled with pride as he realized that at this moment he, not Pops, was the most powerful being in the universe. He and he alone could and would decide the fate of all the universe. If he took Pop's hand, he would relinquish all his newfound power. Things would revert back to the status quo, and all the chance for power would be lost. But if he withdrew his hand and fought on tomorrow, he would preserve his chance to have it all. If they won, he could take over Pops, and the things would be different. Very, very different. But as he was slowly realizing, he would have to become the point man, number one, the king. The euphoria was addicting. A faint smile seeped across his tear-stained face. Everyone but Pops thought it meant Luke was about to take the old man's hand. Only on the face of Pops did tears begin to creep into his eyes. He read Luke's face as if it were a book. He slowly extended his hand further toward Luke's, but Luke began to ever so slowly draw his hand back toward his own increasingly confident self.